as of right now, I'd say that the Urza versus Misaki fight seems to be like the most set as like a battle. I'd say kind of like to overcome that is way more within Urza's reach. Because when you look at the Dark Dragon Slayer Knight matchups, Wendy and Haku obviously is I've said before, and I think it's always important to mention because Wendy didn't beat Haku at his full power. She beat Haku, who was not trying to really hurt her because obviously he wanted to go on a date with her. He has a crush on her, so he's not going to do any serious damage. Wendy was still able to defeat him, but there's an obvious gap difference between like a character who's like defending and bracing and fighting seriously versus one who's like, fighting not with the full gusto. You can see my cats are just causing problems in the background. I think got tape or something on her. But I have to shut the door because I don't want them to cause too much ruckus. But around that, when you look at that fight, it's like, okay, there's stuff around Wendy's latent potential and untapped potential and stuff, but there still was a clear gap between the two characters when you realistically look at their levels. Kieran and Laxus, it's clear that Laxus is outmatched at the moment. Kieran is much stronger, but it doesn't seem like Laxus can't figure out some way to start closing the gap. Like he's able to contend with them, but clearly Kieran is much more powerful. I think the easiest way to kind of say it is like they're in the same tier, but Kieran is way further down. And you can kind of like look at it like imagine not the same thing, but kind of like if you imagine Haku and Kieran. Like clearly Haku has a lot of potential, he's got a lot of natural talent, but Kieran is just way further down the line than he is. But when you look at like that, Laxus, like I think that one is way more of like a big boss fight for Laxus to have to figure out some way to really step up and advance himself in a huge way. Because Urza so far, like she's getting pushed, but it doesn't seem nearly as much of the gap between them as it is between Laxus and Kieran. And with Natsu and Suzaku, I figured that they'd be even around level once Natsu actually started to fight him with more energy and more kind of like input rather than going in and base, because that was the thing that screwed him up in the fight when they were in Elentier. Is Natsu obviously like with forms and stuff, Dragon Force and all his different modes that increase his stats and capabilities. He has to use those obviously in order to get to like certain stages to fight certain opponents. And Suzaku, as a 5th generation Dragon Slayer, is one of the Dragon Eaters. He can't just use Dragon Force at will, and as far as we know, they don't have upgraded forms and whatnot outside of if they ever use Dragon Force. So all of their power should pretty much be in their base. Something similar like Gildarts, where Gildarts doesn't have an upgraded form. So like everything in his power is in that set state. It just depends on how much he wants to flex. But Misaki and Urza, I really enjoy the first bits that we got prior to this chapter, because one thing with Misaki I enjoyed was she went right for the kill with Urza. She was trying to actually kill her, but obviously like she underestimated where Urza was at. I really like that scene also because it gave a good indication of the level between them, because if Misaki was using a level of force to kill somebody, she would be using in her mind what she thought was the necessary amount, but the necessary amount that she thought she had to use was not enough to hurt Urza. So it also like kind of like showed that Urza is stronger than Misaki believed her to be. So that is a bonus in of itself that tells us obviously, okay, well, Urza is, she's strong. We know her fight with Laxus, and she went to Elentier. That's one of the things that like I think that Laxus having a larger gap fight is better because he didn't get an Elentier boost. So his should be, I think, way more of an aggressive battle. I mean, plus like, his is an actual Dragon Slayer fight, whereas Urza's not a Dragon Slayer. And Dragon Slayer fights are pretty much always like the most brutal ones in the series. As we were moving though, I like the moments between Natsu and Suzaku, I've been really enjoying like since their first interactions. I think they've been really fun characters just to see go back and forth. I mean, Suzaku is definitely the most fun new character in 100 Years Quest. Celine's my favorite, I'd say, in terms of like her totality, but Suzaku's the best one in terms of everything that he's been presented with, just because he's had really cool design, really cool paneling, really cool attacks. Like he's got a badass sword. He's already had stuff with a Oh yeah, well he's got backstory stuff obviously set up, but he has, like I've said, it's like a shonen tragic backstory in real time as we're watching all these events unfold. And as things are kind of like going, Urza, like I say Urza though, I'm really anticipating and hyped to see what her, like whatever she's gonna come into, like what she's gonna have after this fight. Like some form of upgrade to her abilities, I would assume. New armor, new sword. I really like the idea of like a grand chariot enchanted sword. I think that would be so cool. But again, I can actually talk about the chapter like as it's going. First off, Blue Dimension. I thought that's cool. I wonder why it's not called Azure Dimension, Azure or whatever, because that's Misaki's color. I wonder if that's maybe just a translation thing or something. I'm not 100% on that. Just because she's actually having like her color in the names, because Haku didn't use any named attacks, I don't think yet. Kirin had some, Suzaku had some, Misaki's had some. I'm wondering when we're gonna get to a point where they're actually gonna use, Dragon Slayer attacks. Like, well, I guess they are Dragon Slayers, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, something dragons, something attack. You know what I mean? Like something like that kind of structure, because that's, what you'd expect, but we've had way more of just kind of like named attacks. So it was that like Kirin had Atmos distortion or something. But I liked Urza on the cover. I thought she looked really nice in that whole set with her katana looking clean. We opened to her Lucy, obviously passed out after beating Kiria. Again, looking good. She looks like she put about the same level of effort as she did with the Mimi fight, where she just pretty much just powered everything through and was enough that she could stand afterwards, and it just forced, she didn't even have enough magic to maintain her form. But Kiria is done. Kiria is so done. Like Kiria is in way worse condition than when she fought Laxus. And that's something that is like really impressive for Lucy, because it's not only like obviously like a big spell for her, but like she a Dragon Slayer secret art attack from Laxus does less damage than Godfrey. And I've got a video I'm planning on doing soon of talking about Aranometria and Godfrey. I'm planning on doing that probably the next few days. Obviously, I haven't been able to really do anything over this last week because I've been moving. But Laxus, very cool, like acknowledges Lucy's strength. I thought that was really nice. Just be well deserved. I thought it was well deserved for Lucy, and that's something that she really benefited as from a character to kind of just get this nice nod, especially from Laxus of all people. I thought that was just pretty sick when you especially go and look early on at the series and see where they, see where it was at the very beginning and see where it's at now. But Natsu and Suzaku, they're having some back and forth. So obviously Natsu's talking about like Igneel because, it's relevant to Igni and whatnot, and having to do with his dad. And now he's got stuff going on with Igni that's related to. I don't know why. Like, if I was Suzaku, I definitely would have questioned more about this, because like some of the stuff, I would have understood just kind of like past like knowing who Igneel is and whatnot. But once Natsu starts talking about like that's his dad, I'd be like, wait a second. And then he's like, well, wait, your dad's actual son is this dragon god. I'd be like, hold on a second. Let me figure out some more stuff. But like Suzaku's just like, I see. I like that though. He's not prying. I would have been like, hey man, I feel like I need to know more about what you just said. But I mean, Suzaku seems to be fine with it. And then there was a funny part when Happy finds Natsu, and he's like saying that he was like, weren't you with Lucy? I figured she'd be safe if you were with her, which I thought was funny. Suzaku even comments on it. It's like, you have a lot of faith in that cat, maybe too much. But we know that Natsu does view Happy as strong and capable, and Happy has his own skills. Obviously, Happy isn't a fighter, but like Happy has his own things he can do. I guess given any situation, he can fly you out of there. He can't fly really high in here, but he's still fast, so he could probably just zip you out of his zone. And I guess like he'd probably only be able to do that though with like the Diablos trio with Kiria, Madmol, and Skullion. I could see Happy being fast enough to kind of outpace them, but I don't know if he'd be fast enough to really handle any of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights, just because they're obviously a higher tier than the general characters they're going to be running across. It could be different though. Like the one thing that Happy has been consistently shown, especially the Exceed, the Exceed in general, but especially Happy, is that they are a fast species. When we get back to Misaki and Urza, I figured that Urza wasn't going to have Gajeel and Ray involved in this fight whatsoever after the haircut, just because that's like it's personal to her. Like it's very personal to her character. Obviously, the stuff with Jalal and everything going on with with stuff in the background with that. Like, I really want to know what Mishima has planned with that, because like he's had so many nods between like Urza, Jalal, and whatnot going on in this. But like Jalal hasn't really been involved too much, but I feel like he's just saving him. And I feel like that's also a safe bet because Mishima does love Jalal so much. But This time with like Dodgil and Gray, they're just gonna be like, oh, obviously they're gonna be like a little bit nervous that Urza's pissed the fuck off. She just had her haircut, but she knows like, don't intervene, don't interfere. I'm gonna be alone. I alone will be enough. I'm fumbling for some reason. Like as I saw it and I immediately wanted to mention the part where when Natsu, Sting says it and then Natsu says it during Grand Match games. I don't think it's a nod though, because like there's no callback to it. There's nothing to indicate to it. I think it's just the same dialogue. But Misaki, obviously she's like, you're underestimating me. So okay, I guess. Gray at the same time, like who's underestimating who? But I'd be like, yeah, you guys gotta be careful. Like this is an opponent. If an opponent like this of a group, and you already see Suzaku, and you see like, okay, well this is a problem. I see a character like that, and also Gray even says that like it feels like Laxus and Gildart's magic. When he says that, he says Laxus and Gildart's magic about to square off. So essentially, the gap, and again, this is a really easy to understand comparison. Laxus and Gildart's. That's a really nice gap between them because it's not something that again is unreachable. It's something that is just within range where you can say like I could see it, but obviously like it's something that she's gonna have to work towards to actually to take out. And then like, we got Misaki's attribute, which is weird. Like I'm guessing hers is spatial or something, because she waves her hand. We saw her lift up that like the little golem or whatever it is, the little monster in the labyrinth earlier. But she like waves her hand and like it looks like Urza turns into like photons or something. And like the first thing I think of is like is Shinra, like when Shinra and like how they did it in Fire Force when he goes like light speed and faster, how he kind of like it just looks like he turns into like light rays really fast. And she just does that and then teleports him away. And they're like in another dimension. She calls her blue dimension, and she says that this is her world. And she's just like floating in it. I'm guessing like being in there is maybe like kind of like being in water, which would be pretty cool. And she's like saying like how in this world she's absolute. She like goes for an attack on Urza and just kind of like smashes back with this blue scream ability. I'm guessing that's like her most basic thing. It looks like it's literally just energy wave the attack, just general blast. And then Urza gets hit. You see Dodgil and Gray like in the back, and then like she just appears. They bring up like she just disappeared, reappeared, and Misaki explains that they were there for 5 seconds, and in her dimension, every second of damage you take will then be done equivalent to an hour. So 5 seconds of damage will then be the same as getting hit by 5 hours of that damage. And I definitely have some questions around that, like I'll mention near the end of the chapter. But that one, that's a really busted ability. That's a really dangerous ability. Because like imagine like, especially if you did something really fatal, like if you stab somebody, like I wonder what it would be like the equivalent then of them getting stabbed for an hour. Would they just then bleed out, or how would that work? Maybe it's just it's not just a pain thing. She says damage. It's not pain. Pain is more mental. Pain doesn't entirely have to do with damage. Like you can look at the Kyoka fight, obviously like there are parts when Urza even breathed on and she was in agony, versus like you actually see physical damage in this fight, both on her body and her armor. And Dodgil and Gray are looking like they're getting ready to try and get in the fight, but Urza says no. She's getting back up on her feet and wants to get back into the fight. And we're seeing again some more parts from Misaki, and she's like, oh, okay, this time I'm going to do 24 seconds, so it'll be the equivalent of a full day. And Urza's doing like, she's just trying to, talk a lot of shit back. She's like, oh, that's lenient. I've known torture that has lasted for longer. Definitely going back, like nodding back to the Tower of Heaven. She was a slave and was, was beaten and tortured and worked hard for, long periods of time. I don't think there was ever I have to go back and look. If there was ever a given time where she was there, like a couple months to weeks. I don't remember if there was anything straight given. I know it wasn't forever. Well, not like actual forever, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like a long period of time, like not years and years. Just guessing, I would say probably like a couple months. Unless it was mentioned. I'd have to go back and look. That actually I do not remember. But she ends up using her blue dimension again. She's trying to go for her blue stream attack. I shouldn't have gone for the same attack. And I get why she would. She doesn't seem to be taking Urza that seriously yet. But Urza does a really smart move, and this obviously has to do with what happened in Elentier when she was using her, was it her 1,000 armed armor, where she was controlling it with magic, and here she's doing the same thing but with her Heaven's Wheel armor. And she goes and just does, you know, her classic Bloomin' Blast. Again, this is her most basic attack. Like, this is the like equivalent to Natsu's Fire Dragon Iron Fist, or, you know, like any of those attacks. Gray's Ice Make Lance. I mean, obviously they have upgraded versions, but you know what I mean. And now Misaki's mad because she got hit and taken some damage. I do really want to know if Misaki also takes the increased damage, because it would make sense if she did, but it would also make sense if she didn't, because it'd be like, okay, it makes sense if fair wise, if she also got hit. But at the same time, I'd be like, well, it's her ability, and she's a Dragon Slayer. So, like, would she get hit by her own ability? Would it even do damage? We'll have to find out in the next chapter. I could see it go either way. I personally would prefer if she doesn't take the damage, because again, she is a Dragon Slayer. I don't think she should have to take the damage, just because it's her own ability, and we know how Dragon Slayers work. But this is like an additional thing besides like their attribute. This seems to be like a ruling in like how this dimension works, so maybe it's different. But I just want to know, like, is she is she gonna have it? But at the same time, like, again, if she doesn't, well, then okay, what's Urza's plan gonna be? Because I could see it kind of being like a thing where, again, Misaki's still obviously gonna be durable. She's a Dragon Slayer and stuff, but like Urza, like, if her thing is also like getting the damage in like these trick moves, then I think Urza will be smart enough to try and figure out ways to work around it every time. Like, if Urza is somebody that, similar to this one, if she has to take an attack to try and figure out how to dodge it and try and handle it, she will. I mean, she still has stuff at her disposal. Like, she has her Nakagami armor, which I'm wondering if she's gonna be able to cut herself out of this dimension with, which she theoretically should be. But who knows? We'll see how things progress from here on. Like, I thought this was a really solid chapter. I was really worried because I knew I wouldn't be able to do the live review, or the live reaction rather, of the chapter when it came out, and I wouldn't be able to do a review for a few days because, like I said, I was moving. And I am really glad I had it for this chapter and not last chapter. This chapter was good. Like, don't get me wrong, I really liked this chapter. I thought it was really good. It was a really good first chapter of this fight. I like seeing Misaki's abilities. I like seeing Urza's moments against her as well. And also, like, the fact that it's set as a 1v1 means that there's a strong possibility that Mad Bull and Skullion are going to come back, which I really, really hope so, because I really want to see both of them fight, especially because Gray and Gajeel both need fights. Gray needs his revenge match against Skullion, and Gajeel needs a fight. But when you look at that, it's like there's a fight for everybody. And luckily, this chapter did really help reinforce that and really set more of that back up. And I know that, like, there's other fights still to come, and the biggest fight still hasn't happened. My cats are yelling at me. The biggest fight still hasn't happened, obviously, Ignia and Selene, but it would make sense to get through this fight first. I'm kind of hoping this fight ends in a draw, because I like Natsu and Suzaku was pretty much kind of like a draw, but their fight was interrupted. Where it's like, I think it'd be cool if Misaki and Urza had like an actual draw, like, you know, put in a situation where they had to stop pretty much. Something happened where they had to separate, and it went down to like Misaki, like instead of Kirin, who is obviously like really interested, Alaxis wants to fight him. If Misaki had a similar thing, but it was more of like a anger and disgust, like she had a personal grudge out on Urza. So it's like Urza has her personal pissed off grudge for Misaki cutting her hair, but Misaki could get, like, you know, whatever like additional that happens that could lead to, you know, her having a personal thing against Urza. So it'd be really cool if they would have a grudge, or she would have a grudge as well, so they both do. I think that would really benefit her character as well, to have, again, a personal stake. Because we don't really know anything about Misaki so far, other than that she's close with Kiria. Like, we have bits about the other ones, but Misaki is the one that we don't really have anything of yet. We only have bits of her personality. We don't have like any of her funnier side. Like, I'm guessing she's gonna have something kind of like a little bit goofy to her, unless Mishima wants to make her more aggressive, which I'm fine with, because he made Kirin more funny than I thought he would be. Like, Kirin is definitely a lot more chill of a dude than I would have expected. So if Misaki's going to be like more of that kind of angry and kind of ruthless member of the group, I'd be fine with that. I think that'd be really cool. And I think that would be beneficial, because it would give them all different personality traits and make them all kind of like, you know, stand out their own way. and have unique responses to each of the main cast members and members of the guild that are present and doing stuff. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but like button, subscribe, check out my other videos. But that, appreciate everybody's subscribe. Thank you all for listening. Bye.